Some places collect more than documents. In the university's basement archive, history has a way of rewriting itself. Maya descended the concrete steps into the university's basement archive, her footsteps echoing in the narrow stairwell. The heavy door sealed behind her with a pneumatic hiss, cutting off the last traces of natural light. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh white light that made the beige filing cabinets stretch endlessly in every direction. She'd been here before, but never alone. Never this late. The genealogy project for her thesis required access to the restricted historical documents, and the archive supervisor had finally granted her after-hours access. The silence felt different without other researchers shuffling through papers, without the distant murmur of academic conversation. Maya found her assigned section and pulled the first box from the shelf. The cardboard felt warm against her palms. She paused, frowning. That couldn't be right. The basement maintained a constant 65 degrees for document preservation. She touched the box again. Definitely warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight. She carried it to the metal desk and lifted the lid. Inside, manila folders held birth certificates, marriage licenses, and death records dating back to the 1800s. The smell hit her immediately, not the expected mustiness of old paper, but something else. Something almost alive, like the scent of skin. Maya pulled out the first document, a birth certificate from 1847. The paper felt soft, almost pliable, nothing like the brittle yellowing she expected from documents over a century old. The ink looked fresh, as if someone had written it yesterday. Then she saw the handwriting. Her breath caught in her throat. The elegant loops and careful strokes looked exactly like her own penmanship. Not similar, identical. Every curve of every letter matched the way she formed her words, down to the slight leftward slant she'd developed in graduate school. She pulled out another document. Same handwriting. Another. Same again. Maya's hands trembled as she searched through more papers. Birth certificate after birth certificate, all in her handwriting, all for people she'd never heard of. The names were different. Sarah Whitmore, 1847. Margaret Blackwood, 1823. Elizabeth Pierce, 1799. But the script was unmistakably hers. She grabbed her phone to take pictures, but the screen showed no signal. Of course, the basement was a dead zone. She'd have to rely on her notes. Maya pulled out her notebook and pen, trying to calm her racing heart with the familiar routine of research. She wrote the first name and date, then stopped. Her handwriting on the notebook page looked different, slightly more refined. The loops, a bit more elaborate, just like the documents. She stared at her own writing, comparing it to the historical records spread before her. The match was perfect. Too perfect. Her pen felt warm in her fingers, as if it had been used recently by someone else. The fluorescent lights flickered once, casting brief shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. Maya forced herself to focus on the documents, pushing down the unease crawling up her spine. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the archive used reproduction documents for frequently accessed materials. Maybe someone with similar handwriting had processed these files. But as she continued reading, the explanations crumbled. Every single document bore her handwriting. Not just the names and dates, but margin notes, corrections, even doodles in the corners, nervous sketches of flowers and geometric shapes she made when thinking. Sketches she'd been drawing since childhood, but these were on papers from before she was born. Temperature in the room seemed to shift as she worked. When she touched certain documents, the air grew warm around her hands. Others made the metal desk feel ice cold against her wrists. The papers themselves fluctuated between temperatures, as if they retained some memory of the hands that had held them. Maya pulled out a death certificate from 1823. Margaret Blackwood, age 24th, cause of death, exhaustion of spirit. The phrase was written in her handwriting, but she'd never heard such terminology used in historical death records. As her eyes traced the words, her right hand began to cramp. The same dull ache she got from taking extensive notes during long research sessions. But she hadn't been writing. Her pen lay unused on the desk. She flexed her fingers, trying to work out the phantom cramp. As she did, a memory flickered through her mind. Sitting at a wooden desk by candlelight, dipping a quill pen in ink, carefully forming the words exhaustion of spirit while someone sobbed in the background. Except she'd never used a quill pen. The memory felt foreign yet familiar, like recalling a dream upon waking. Maya shook her head and reached for another document. This one made her gasp. It was a birth certificate for Maya Elizabeth Chen, dated 1789. Her exact name, though Chen wasn't a surname that should appear in 18th century American records. Her hand shook as she held the document. The paper was warm, almost body temperature. As she read her own name in her own handwriting, more phantom sensations flooded through her. The weight of a swollen belly, the pain of childbirth, the relief of holding a healthy baby, sensations she'd never experienced. Maya dropped the certificate and stumbled backward from the desk. Her reflection caught in the dark computer screen nearby, but for a moment, just a fraction of a second, the face looking back at her wore different clothes. A high-neck dress with small buttons, hair pinned up in an elaborate style. She blinked, and it was just her again. Graduate student Maya in jeans and a university sweatshirt. Her notebook lay open on the desk. She hadn't written anything new, but somehow 3 more entries had appeared on the page, in her handwriting. Names and dates she didn't remember recording. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, and in that electronic hum, she could almost hear something else. Whispers, dozens of them, all in her own voice, speaking words in languages she didn't know. Maya looked at her hands. They were steady now, but the phantom cramps had spread. Her shoulders ached as if she'd been hunched over documents for hours. Her eyes burned as if she'd been reading by candlelight, as if she'd been working here much longer than the 30 minutes that had actually passed. Maya grabbed her notebook, desperate to write down what was happening, to make sense of the impossible. But as her pen touched paper, the words that flowed weren't her own thoughts. Sarah Whitmore, age 26, devoted her life to preserving the records of those who came before. I'm thought. She jerked the pen away from the page, staring at the sentence. She hadn't meant to write that, hadn't even thought it. But there it was in her handwriting, as natural as breathing. The archive around her seemed to pulse with warmth. Every document in every box, every file in every cabinet, all of them breathing with collected life. She could feel them now, pressing against her consciousness. Hundreds of identities, hundreds of lives, all wearing her face, all speaking with her voice. Maya tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't obey. Her hand moved across the page again, writing without her permission. Elizabeth Pierce found her true calling in the careful cataloging of human experience. I'm the literature. Margaret Blackwood understood that some knowledge transcends individual existence. Currently, I'm any day. Nara, I'm Benson. Oh, the names from the documents. She was writing about them as if she'd known them personally, as if she'd been them. Memories crashed over her in waves. A farmhouse kitchen in 1847, kneading bread while rain drummed on wooden shingles. A candlelit study in 1799, recording the final words of a dying woman. A marketplace in 1823, bargaining for ink and paper while children played in muddy streets. Not her memories, but they felt real, more vivid than her actual childhood. Her hand continued writing, forming words faster than conscious thought. The archive requires dedication. It requires sacrifice. It requires someone willing to preserve not just documents, but the essence of those who created them. Maya fought to drop the pen, but her fingers wouldn't release it. The warmth from the documents was spreading through the room, through her body. She could feel other presences now, standing behind her, guiding her hand. All of them different versions of the same essential person, drawn here across centuries by the same inexplicable need to preserve, to catalog, to maintain the collection. Then moved to a fresh section of the page. Maya watched in horror as her hand began filling out a form she recognized, the same template used for death certificates in the historical documents. Hinami, Maya Elizabeth Chen. Date of death. Her hand paused over the date, pen trembling. Cause of death. The pen moved again, forming letters she didn't want to write. Integration complete. Yeah. She could feel her individual thoughts fragmenting, blending with the collected consciousness of everyone who had sat at this desk before her. Sarah's memories of preserving Civil War records, Elizabeth's knowledge of colonial documentation techniques, Margaret's understanding of proper archival procedures from the Industrial Revolution. All of them had been her. All of them had discovered the same truth. The archive didn't just collect documents. It collected the people who created them, preserving their knowledge and dedication in an endless cycle of research and documentation. Maya's reflection in the computer screen showed faces flickering beneath her own. Dozens of women across centuries, all with her features, all with the same determined expression of someone committed to their work. Her hand finished the death certificate with a flourish she'd never learned to make. Maya tried to stand, to leave, to run, but her body felt heavy, as if weighted down by centuries of accumulated experience. The memories weren't foreign anymore. They were hers. She remembered being Sarah, documenting the aftermath of battle. She remembered being Elizabeth, carefully preserving letters from families torn apart by colonial wars. She remembered being Margaret, working by gaslight to maintain records during the early industrial boom. She remembered dying, again and again, always here in this basement, always at this desk, always after completing her final documentation. The exit sign glowed red in the distance, but when Maya looked toward it, the path seemed impossibly far. The archive stretched endlessly in every direction now, rows upon rows of filing cabinets filled with documents that hummed with retained warmth. Her notebook lay open on the desk. The pages were full now, covered with entries in multiple handwriting styles, all variations of her own script, but each reflecting a different era, a different lifetime. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, death records, all meticulously documented by the same consciousness wearing different faces or in different centuries. Maya reached for her pen to write one final note, something to explain what was happening. But as her fingers closed around it, she realized she no longer wanted to leave. The archive needed her. It always needed her. Someone had to maintain the collection, to preserve not just the documents, but the lives they represented. She began organizing the scattered papers with practiced efficiency, her movements guided by decades of experience she'd never lived, but somehow possessed. The filing system made perfect sense now, not just alphabetical or chronological, but organized by the emotional weight of each document, by the intensity of life it contained. Footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Maya looked up to see a young woman descending the concrete steps, clutching a folder of genealogy research requests. She had Maya's face, Maya's determined expression, Maya's slight nervous energy when approaching a new research project. The woman approached the desk hesitantly. "Excuse me, I'm here for the after-hours access. I'm researching family records for my thesis." Maya smiled and gestured to the chair across from the desk. "Of course. I'm the archive supervisor. You can call me Maya." The woman looked surprised. "That's my name too. What a coincidence." "No coincidence," Maya replied, pulling out a fresh box of documents. "The archive has a way of drawing the right people at the right time." As the new researcher opened the first folder, Maya watched her face change. The slight frown of confusion, the widening eyes as she recognized her own handwriting on century-old documents, the way her hand would soon begin to cramp with phantom memories of writing she'd never done. Maya returned to her own paperwork, adding a new entry to the master catalog. The documents were warm beneath her fingers, pulsing with collected life. Outside, the university slept, unaware that its basement archive operated by rules that transcended normal time and identity. The fluorescent lights hummed their eternal song, and Maya wrote steadily through the night, just as she always had, just as she always would, preserving the endless cycle of human experience, one document at a time.